We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. By the time you hear this, it will be Friday. We're recording Thursday night, and with me tonight is Eric from Iowa. And I'm glad Eric's with us tonight because there's so much ridiculous shit going on here. I need somebody who can break it down in specific terms because some of the stuff just makes no goddamn sense at all. So I was anxious to talk to Eric today, and I don't know. I'm just feeling like everything is, it's not that it's just bad, it's just stupid and silly. And that's what's frustrating about it because people are still backing a clown that's saying ridiculous shit.
Yeah, it is. It's every day there's so much bullshit going on. It's hard to wrap your head around all of it. I mean, if it was a movie and you took the script in, they'd laugh you out of the office saying there's no way nobody would believe that this would ever happen in real life. It's that ridiculous. But here we are. And I'm glad to be back. I'll try to break it down, but for some of this shit, there's nothing more to be said, but then they're dumb fucks.
Yeah, they are absolutely dumb fucks. And I've been saying this and you've been saying it for years. It's not bad enough that they're evil. It's not bad enough that they want to undermine democracy, but they're just fucking stupid. I mean, a good example. Um, he wants to prosecute James Comey. He's the one talking about weaponization of the DOJ, but this is the epitome of that. The prosecutors don't want to prosecute him. They've gotten him indicted. Of course, we know a sandwich can get indicted, so that's not a big deal. But he's got a problem. They're going to ask for dismissals for a few things, a malicious prosecution, and I can't remember what the other one is. But the malicious prosecution would normally be hard to prove, except for the fact that Donald Trump posted what was supposed to be a DM, basically telling Pam Bondi, the attorney general, to go after him because he doesn't like him. I don't think this thing even goes to fucking trial, to be perfectly honest with you.
I doubt it. And if it does, they're going to have a field day with Discovery, and it's going to be more embarrassment minute after minute for this administration, for Donald Trump, probably revealing some underlying criminality. And as somebody else pointed out, this district attorney who was more than willing to be Donald Trump's puppet in this and bring these charges, depending on how bad they lose this case by and how much James Comey proves and what comes out in Discovery and everything, could be staring at potentially a disbarment or some other kind of penalty to their law license over this yet.
Well, she wouldn't be the first one that hooked up with Donald Trump as a lawyer and got disbarred, a la Rudy Giuliani and some other fucks. But here's the thing: there is never any lessons learned. You do something stupid and you just do it again because they indicted Letitia James. Another situation where prosecutor says, we got nothing. So he fired that prosecutor and hired this Barbie doll insurance lawyer to get the indictment, which they did. So now Letitia James, you're going up against James Comey and Letitia James, both pretty intelligent, legal minded people, and they're going to have the best lawyers. I kind of hope they go to court because it's going to get ugly if they go into trial.
Yeah, they got no case against either one. And this goes back to the thing Donald Trump put out publicly. He wanted Letitia James. He wanted James Comey to be indicted. He didn't care if there was any reason because they needed to be put in jail because they're criminals. And the thing they got Letitia James on, or what they're trying to get her on, is bank fraud or fraudulent statements to a financial institution. Sound familiar? That's what Donald Trump was found civilly liable for in New York to the tune of 500 million. That's part of what they're doing. I think Donald Trump was the one pulling the strings saying, well, go after for something bank related, fraud related like that. So maybe it either makes it look like he's better or that everybody does it and it really shouldn't be a crime.
Well, I heard more in depth about this story, and what it is mortgage fraud, some of the things he's blamed other people for, which is all ridiculous. So, what happened with Letitia James, she helped a nephew buy a house, right? She helped a nephew buy a house, and there's a box said, is this your primary residence? And apparently she checked that. But it was clearly a mistake because on at least three other situations on the sheet, she wrote in her own handwriting, "This is not my primary house. This is not my primary house. I'm getting this for my nephew." So she may have mistakenly checked that box, but it was very clear in the rest of the application that it wasn't her primary house. But that's how Donald Trump does things, trying to look for little loopholes and then exaggerate them to a ridiculous amount. And it never works out for him. He always fucking fails.
Oh, he always fails. If there's one constant with this administration, it's Donald Trump fucks up and fails because he's incompetent. Never should have gotten the presidency the first time, shouldn't have been allowed to run this time. But here we are because Republicans were spineless and couldn't walk away from him. Um, and that leads into something I wanted to clear up. You guys were talking, I think you were talking to JD Farmer. Uh, and you mentioned the fact I always talk about the math, about Republicans haven't, they're doing the math. They haven't decided when it's correct to walk away.
Right.
And what I'm thinking about that, when I say they're staring at that 30% Republican base that are only there because of Donald Trump. They're trying
Right.
to figure out what they can do to keep that 30% to vote for them, whether it's just through the midterms or whatever, and still keep the rest of their base and win their election. Because they know if Donald Trump's out of the White House, those people probably will never vote again. If they remove Donald Trump with the 25th Amendment, those people will probably never vote again, or they will purposely vote against the people that were responsible, and be vindictive because they went after their Lord and Savior.
Right. I understand the whole math concept and I agree with you on that. My contention isn't with you. My contention is okay, you need to work this out mathematically, theoretically speaking. How have you not reached that point yet? How have they not realized that the math is mathing in such a way where you got to jump or go over the bridge with them?
It's because they're staring at that 30% and they're not sure if they can placate the other 70 and still win their elections. Like if they can win their elections with just the 70% remaining, that's when they may start to break. But they're sitting there going, I don't know. Is it too far that yet? Can we, they're trying to see if they can keep that 30% while still breaking away from Donald Trump. They're trying to do both, and it's not going to work. It's going to fail. But they're scared of not getting reelected and losing their own power. That's what these congressional Republicans are. They covet more than anything, their own power.
See, this is the stupidity I'm talking about with these clowns. They're terrified of not getting reelected, so they're trying to placate the 30%. Yet they shut
Mm-hmm.
down the government. They shut down the government. Want to take away health care or raise people's health care prices. Everything they're doing is costing them votes. And they're still just worried about the 30%. I mean, fuck. You can't see the forest for the trees. These guys
Oh,
must be oblivious.
they are kind of oblivious. They've bought into their own hype, and I think that they feel that they are kind of untouchable because of November's election. I think they expected to lose in November. I think they expected what we expected for Kamala Harris to win, for the Democrats to retake the House and keep the Senate. I think they expected that. Now, they'll publicly say, of course, well, we always knew we were going to win, but I think they expected it. And when it didn't happen and they had power, I think they think their momentum is shifting permanently in their direction and that they've got some sort of a great thing going on and they're untouchable now.
Well, like Donald Trump said, a mandate. A mandate of
Yeah.
1.5%. Yeah, it's not a mandate, never was a mandate. But Donald Trump will say ridiculous shit just to hope that somebody will agree to it. Now, he did his little cabinet meeting today, and he said some really dumb shit. He knows that the healthcare issue with the shutdown is a big issue, and people are going after the Republicans because of the healthcare issue, justifiably so. And Donald Trump says, we've got the best health care. We're the health care party. In fact, I'm going to drop the prices of medicine 100%, even more than that, 2, 3, 500%, maybe even more than that. First of all, why does he call it medicine? And secondly, how do you drop something more than 100% of its actual cost? This dumb motherfucker doesn't even grasp it. I mean, if we dropped it 500%, that means when I go get my prescription, that if I'm paying $100 for it, now it would be that they pay me $500 to take the medication. How does that fucking work? It's
Well,
ridiculous.
well, if that's his grasp on percentages, it proves why he's gone bankrupt as many times as he has.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
as far as why he calls it medicine and not pharmaceuticals or something else, is probably because with his dementia being where it's at, he probably has forgotten the word pharmaceuticals or he struggles with it. So he says the word that he knows he can pronounce and get out and be fine. He doesn't want to be embarrassed like he did with trying to say acetaminophen. And then he goes medicine, but then that still makes him look dumb. And he still gets embarrassed, or at least we make fun of him for it, and he doesn't even realize it. Um, but dropping it by 100 to 500% doesn't work, especially when he's put tariffs on pharmaceuticals coming into this country at 100%, which will double their prices. None of it makes a lick of sense, but he's hoping that it'll work or that they'll go up for a while with the tariffs. And then when he drops when he drops the tariffs or they get found unconstitutional or whatever, and the prices go back to what they were, well, see, I lowered drug prices,
But it
something
never
like that.
works. He
It
he he
never works for him.
fails. No, he always fails. He always over promises and under provides. He just and he can't help himself because he's a narcissist. So he sits there and he'll say anything that comes to his head. And all he see the thing with narcissists, they only care about today. They want to get out of problems or be thought of as great today. They don't think about down the long haul. They think they can either figure it out or they're brilliant and they'll make people believe, but it never works. Donald Trump is constantly disappointing people, and we're seeing it with the Republican Party. Even it's I don't know. This is airing on Friday, and I don't know if you know this, but this is going to be a horrible day for Donald Trump. First of all, we had him announce yesterday that they have a peace deal with Israel and Hamas, but it's only phase one. It's not a full peace deal, but it's phase one. Now, keep in mind, this peace deal was not written by Donald Trump. It was, in fact, written by Joe Biden, and Joe Biden handed it off to him and said, here, this is what we've been working on. Try to use this. This is a good one. So now Donald Trump grabs that, tacks his name onto it. He's a big genius. And they go to Israel. Now, I heard Israel has signed off on this peace deal. I haven't heard that Hamas has signed off on it. That's what we always hear about these deals. One side says okay and the other side doesn't, and it never happens. But Donald Trump wanted to get this out there in the news today for a very specific reason. He said on Monday or Tuesday, the prisoners will be released. Okay. Now, whether that really will happen or not, I wouldn't bet on it given Donald Trump. But guess what today is?
What?
Today is the announcement of who wins the Nobel Peace Prize. And
Yep.
Donald Trump wants it so bad. I don't know if you saw this. Bibi Netanyahu and Donald Trump are butt buddies. We know that. Bibi Netanyahu, after he agreed to this deal, he put out some meme on Twitter or something, and it showed a picture of Donald Trump with a big, ridiculous medal around his chest. And Bibi said, Donald Trump should get the Nobel Peace Prize. Oh, they're working it. What Donald Trump doesn't understand is he's done nothing to win that Peace Prize. And even if by some chance this worked today, too late. That's already been decided. So when it comes out that Donald Trump doesn't win the Nobel Peace Prize, he is going to lose his shit. Now, if it's somebody he doesn't like Joe Biden or somebody like that, that would even be better. But this is going to be a bad day for Donald Trump. He's not winning the Nobel Peace Prize.
Oh, it's going to be a horrible day when they announce the winners. The ketchup's going to be flying at Mar-a-Lago, and he's going to be, you know, ranting and raving on Truth Social about how he really deserved it. And they only didn't give it to him because, though they would never give it to me because they hate me, like he always does. because he's got to be the constant victim. He's just like the MAGA fucks in that way. They all
Oh,
want to be victims about everything. And, what he doesn't realize is they've already decided. They decided probably a month ago or better who was going to win the prize. This is just when they finally, they announce it, they have the ceremony, etc. Having time to get people to these events and everything, it takes time. So even if this worked and he would win a Nobel Prize for this, we wouldn't be talking about it till next year at this time for him to get it for his efforts right now. It's not instantaneous, but he's too stupid to realize it. And he only cares about looking like the peace president. And how do you end up being the peace president when you go up in front of your military generals and you get recorded as saying, well, maybe we should send you into the liberal cities and use them as training grounds.
yeah.
That doesn't sound like a peaceful thing to me.
Or his Secretary of Defense says you're too fat. We don't like your haircuts. I mean, the whole thing was silly and it was embarrassing. And I got to believe those military men are just embarrassed to be even part of this situation with Donald Trump as their commander in chief. I'm willing to bet, and I could be wrong, but I'm willing to bet this peace deal doesn't happen. And after the Nobel Peace Prize is not given to Donald Trump, he's not going to give a fuck. I mean, he wanted to end the Russia-Ukraine war 24 hours, and I heard just before we started to record that there is a massive bombing by Russia in Ukraine. He's not only not stopped the war, he's allowed it to get a whole hell of a lot worse. And the same goes for Israel and Hamas.
I would probably agree with that. That if he doesn't get the Nobel Peace Prize, which he won't, they have pretty much said he won't get it without saying he won't get it. And anybody with a rational mind can look at it and go, he's not a peaceful person. He
Yeah.
doesn't deserve it. He hasn't done enough in the world stage and at home to be seen as a peaceful person. Um, but he'll say, fuck it, let it go for a while till it gets at least as long as he is pissed off at the Nobel Committee and that's at the forefront of his thing. Because he'll say, well, if they wouldn't give me the Peace Prize for what I was doing, why should I keep trying? And that's how he is. As far as Ukraine goes, even Zelensky said, if he could end the war, if he could get this thing to stop and keep our territory, Zelensky said he'd nominate him himself for the Peace Prize.
Right.
But
Right.
Donald Trump isn't making any efforts to get Ukraine funding or help Ukraine or get Ukraine into NATO to make it so Ukraine is safe. But he's not a peace president, despite campaigning on being one. He lies at every turn.
Well, and in terms of aid for the people in Gaza, um, you've got Greta Thunberg with the flotilla, and they were going to come up and bring uh, food and aid to Gaza. But Israel, this peaceful country that everybody thinks is wonderful, comes in and stops the flotilla. My question is, why would you stop the flotilla? It's not like they're going to attack Israel. They didn't bomb Israel. They're just trying to help people that are innocent people and try to keep them alive. But moreover, had Joe Biden been in the presidency, the one thing he did with Benjamin Netanyahu that people didn't understand or didn't appreciate, he kept tight reins on Benjamin Netanyahu. That what happened with that flotilla would have never happened because Biden wouldn't allow them to do it. Um, but as I told people, if Donald Trump gets elected president, he's just going to let Benjamin Netanyahu do whatever he wants. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, exactly. Joe Biden would have let it happen. Kamala Harris wouldn't have let it happen. Um, but Donald Trump doesn't care. He's never shown a lick of empathy for another human being, and he doesn't care. He only cares. The only reason he even cares about what's going on between Israel and Hamas right now is because he thinks it'll get him a Nobel Peace Prize. There's something in it
Exactly.
for him. There's nothing in it for him if he reels in Netanyahu. Nothing. So he doesn't care. He doesn't do it. And the advisors he has around him aren't telling him, hey, Donnie, you'd look like a genius if you did this. You'd look smart. You'd look strong. And if they are saying it, he's not listening to them anymore.
Well, and that's exactly right. The psyche of Donald Trump is so immature, so childish, so stilted that literally, people think I'm just saying it because I don't like him. Everything he does, if he doesn't personally benefit, he doesn't care. He doesn't care about the people in Gaza dying. He doesn't care about the Ukrainians because it doesn't affect him directly. The only reason he wants to stop these wars is because he can maybe get the Nobel Peace Prize. And the reason he wants the Nobel Peace Prize is because um, Barack Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize. And I will say this: today is the day in 2009 that Barack Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize. And that is sticking in Donald Trump's craw. He wants to be better than Barack Obama. He'd need more than the Nobel Peace Prize to do that, but he thinks that's the thing that's going to make him better than Barack Obama. Not going to happen. Barack got it 16 years ago. Donald Trump's going to get goose eggs today.
Yeah, it's all about what's in it for Donald Trump. And if you have to look no farther than his comments about Charlie Kirk or his comments about people getting fired for or not paid or furloughed for the government shutdown. When they asked, how are you handling grieving Charlie Kirk? Oh, I'm doing great. Look at my ballroom. They're constructing my ballroom. Isn't it
Yeah.
great? Then he's asked about the people that are getting furloughed. And well, yeah, it's sad that they're getting furloughed. It's the Democrats' fault. Democrats shut down. Democratic shutdown. Oh, by the way, my walk of fame. It's not about him, and he's not interested. That's all it is. He's got to find a way to spin every situation to himself. He's never going to be as good of a president as Barack Obama, never going to be as good of a president as Joe Biden. And when it's all
Is
said and
anybody?
done, he will be the worst president probably of all time.
I don't know how he could be anything less. I mean, I haven't lived through some of those older ones that were before my time, but certainly in our time, there's nobody that's even been as close to as bad as he is. And that's including George W. Bush and Richard Nixon. So that's fucking saying something. He makes Richard Nixon look as he makes Richard Nixon look like a breath of fresh air. Honest to God,
Oh,
he's just
oh,
fucking
I would
unbelievable.
take comparing the two. I would take a return to a Nixon presidency right now.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
would. At least it wouldn't be nearly as bad. And if we had Nixon era Republicans in Congress right now, Donald Trump and his entire cabinet, maybe even JD Vance, would all be out on their ass.
Well, now I'm curious as to what you think about this. Eric Swalwell put out something on Twitter. I'm not going to call it X, it's Twitter. Um, that don't worry because something big's coming out of the Epstein. The bomb's going to drop there, and the Republicans are already talking about walking away from him behind the scenes. And that's nice talk. I've become a little more cynical than I was when this all started. But the idea that the Republicans are going to finally see the light, a big bomb is going to come out of the Epstein files. I um, I have to see it to be sure. But what are your thoughts about that? I mean, we're getting to that point when something's got to break. So conceivably, he could be right, but I just don't know what it could be at this point.
I think you're probably going to see something out of the files, and Eric Swalwell, he's talking to him behind closed doors, and we've said they're having discussions behind closed doors. We've said that since Donald Trump took back over, and depending on what if this bomb is that they claim this big bombshell report is going to be as bad as what he makes it out to be, and they decide to walk away, maybe that's the moment where they're like, okay, the math is now against us. We have to do something. JD Vance at least isn't in the Epstein files. Okay, now we make our move. We got to rebrand for 28, hope for the best, and bite the bullet now. Maybe we can get the MAGA base back on our side once we kick this dumb fuck to the curb. Problem is, they don't realize on the Republican side that even if they move now, known what was in the Epstein files for years at this point, and
Yeah.
they've been trying to save Donald Trump. Democrats have tons of ammunition to use against them.
Yeah. I think there's two prospects for bombshells, and see what you think about this. First of all, we know with the DOJ, the White House, and everything, it's leaky as hell. There are people probably feeling pressure right now that want to get something out to stop this shit because they're tired of dealing with it. I mean, I'll guarantee you, people working in the White House, the morale can't be very good at this point because everybody's spinning around. Donald Trump is ranting and raving. But I'm wondering if there isn't going to be a video, something that you can't argue with, that's going to come out to expose Donald Trump in some way, as far as being friends with Epstein or involved in some illicit act. I think that's possible. But you know what the other bombshell could be? And somebody else brought this up, and I can't remember who it was. It might have been Swalwell. And the bombshell could be this. We know that when this woman from Grijaldi or whatever from Arizona finally gets sworn in, and when Congress is back in session, he has to swear her in. Not when they're, when they're on a break like this. He's got an option not to do it. He's done it many times for Republicans, but at least when they're back in session, he's got to do it. And when she goes and signs on the 218th person, and it goes, the discharge petition route goes around Mike Johnson, and they have to vote in the House of Representatives. That's the thing they're scared about, because people don't want to own up to and be public about, no, I want you to keep hiding the Epstein records. Some people are suggesting that if it gets to that point and they know it's going to affect them with their constituents, the bombshell might be that 100 Republicans vote, yeah, open it up. And you don't even need the 218 because you've got more than that, because the Republicans are too afraid to piss off the constituents or just too tired of Donald Trump.
Yeah, and if they get 100, that might be enough to trigger a veto-proof majority, at least in the House.
Yeah.
Which, if they get the same reaction in the Senate, say they get, what do Democrats have? They get 20 senators in the Senate willing to say, okay, you know what, our constituents are, pissed about the Epstein files. We've got to release it. They get a veto-proof majority. That might be the bombshell. You could be right. It could be either one of those things. It could be both of them,
Yeah.
for all we know.
Well, if
Um,
one comes
and,
out, the other would happen.
right. And well, I mean, we don't know what's in the files, but there could be a video of some kind showing Donald Trump doing something with a young girl, and that would be enough where Republicans would then have to act against Donald Trump, and it would set off a firestorm. Um, and then if that kind of momentum moves against Mike Johnson to vote to release the files when they know they're going to be put on the record, just like I said with this shutdown business, he may end up facing a fight for his speakership out of this. They may vote to remove him. It would only take a few Republicans and all Democrats.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's likely. I think that's coming up because Mike Johnson, if you look at him, he looks nervous as fuck and he's not doing very well. But in terms of evidence, something came out in the Pam Bondi testimony. One of the senators asked about, it might have been Schiff, uh, asked about a claim by Michael Wolff, who's interviewed Donald Trump a number of times, written books about Donald Trump. He says that he's seen a number of pictures of Donald Trump in compromising positions. He saw a picture that he described as Donald Trump sitting in a chair and two young girls sitting on his knees, topless. That would be a big fucking bombshell that went off if someone could show that picture. Now, he'd say it's photoshopped or AI, but that would be easy to disprove. Um, and of course, Pam Bondi chose just not to answer it. She she was asked, "Did you see that picture?" Because the DOJ is supposed to have it. She wouldn't. She was talking about, well, it's you just want to talk about this salacious stuff and this and that, but she never said no. And Schiff said again, you didn't answer the question. Offered the question again. All she did is stare at him. Now, it would seem to me if that picture did not exist, it would be an easy no for her. But she didn't give the no. She doesn't want to lie in front of Congress and expose herself any further than she's already exposed. I'm wondering if something like that's going to fall out of the sky and just be the bombshell that throws everything down the shitter.
It very well could be. Um, and I mean, we've already seen pictures of Trump. Wasn't there a picture floating around of Donald Trump with a bunch of young girls on Epstein's plane or on a plane anyway?
Yeah,
But they were all fully clothed, and they all looked like clones of Ivanka. Like they all looked almost identical to her.
yeah.
Um, I mean, Donald Trump, this is going to come out if that picture and that image that you were just talking about is real. That could be the thing that brings down Donald Trump. That may get to him before the Big Mac does. And when he can't control the narrative, he may go into a full-blown meltdown. And again, they might have no choice but to uh, have him removed from office one way or another, because either mentally he's just lost it to the point where he can't do his job, or the public outcry is bad enough that the math is now where they're going, oh, fuck, we got to do something. We got to do something. We got to do something yesterday.
Yeah, the funny thing is that with the Republicans following him and supporting him, seeing what he does and what he says and where he could be implicated, they had to know the time is coming. We knew the time was coming. We wanted it quicker than what we're seeing, but we knew ultimately this is what happens to a narcissist. They go too far, they can't control everything, and it all falls in on them. And it seems like to me, we're getting closer to that, not only by Donald Trump's behavior, but like with the shutdown. I don't know if you notice what's going on. The House is on vacation at a time when we have a
Mm-hmm.
shutdown. Mike Johnson gets caught up outside in the hallway and gets torn up um, by, uh, by a representative. And then Hakeem Jeffries runs into Lawler from the Republican side, and they get tore up because Hakeem and the Democrats are in the right, and the Republicans just don't know how to answer it. They can't go to the votes, so they have to go in the halls and try to get some purchase by making some noise, and that doesn't even work. This to me strikes absolute paranoia and panic, and I'm enjoying seeing it. But everything they're trying, it isn't work. They try to pawn this shutdown on the Democrats. Nobody's buying it. Nobody's
Yeah,
buying it. They'll lie
yeah,
and say everybody's on their side, but the numbers just don't match up, and the people that put the votes in don't believe it.
they're flailing. They don't know what to do. They don't have the votes. They can't manufacture the votes to get this thing through. Mike Johnson isn't around to negotiate, I think, because they're scared. He's scared that if their side gets in and they start actually doing a bunch of negotiations, that their side will give in and agree to fund the Affordable Care Act subsidies and put the Medicaid money back, because they know how bad it is. And they 100% know that their line about what Democrats are doing is trying to give undocumented immigrants health care is bullshit.
Yeah.
They know it, but it's all they've got. They have built their entire administration or their entire term around this idea of Democrats are doing everything for undocumented immigrants. Everything, everything, everything. And it's coming crumbling down around them because they built it on nothing. And the only thing where undocumented immigrants get any sort of money out of that Medicaid thing, and they don't even get the money themselves. What the law says, and it was a law Reagan passed and Reagan signed, is that you show up at the ER, you need treated, they're supposed to treat you and at least put you back to the point where you're not in danger from whatever's going on. Like, even if you show up with bronchitis or whatever, they at least get you on a path to where you're not going to get any worse. And then if you can't afford to pay, Medicaid steps in and pays the hospital So the hospital isn't out any money, but that's it. And that applies to citizens and non-citizens alike. But they want to make it out that these undocumented immigrants are getting all this healthcare money. No, they're only getting treated for the most life-threatening of issues when they appear at the emergency room to get help because they absolutely need it. And they're not going to risk going to the ER for every little thing because they're constantly in fear of getting found or getting deported, especially right now in this current climate. They're only going to go for the absolute necessities. So why shouldn't they get treatment?
I mean, it's a tough position to put the hospital in, turning away somebody who may be on death's door. Um, they have a they have a moral reason to accept anybody that's in dire situation to treat them. The money that's paid out, as you say, isn't paid out to the illegal immigrant. It's paid out to the hospital to subsidize the work they've done. It's not helping it's not helping the immigrant directly. It's basically to keep the hospital healthy. And like I said, they take these things and they exaggerate them and try to sell them, and a certain faction of people will believe it, but it's absolute bullshit. Now, the problem we have with Congress right now, with the Republicans in the House, all of these people know that this ACA thing is a non starter. They shouldn't fuck with it. Because what people have to understand is there's no new money being added to the ACA. This just continues what's been going on for a decade or two. So there's no new money here. And to keep the ACA open is easy, it's popular. And I would say most Republicans in the House of Representatives, save for some Trumplafucks, um, agree with that. The only reason they're fighting this right now is because Donald Trump wants them to. Donald Trump doesn't care if people lose their health care. He just wants the win. So the Republicans are in a tight spot right now. They know what's right. They don't like the government being shut down because it's working against them. The problem is the Lord and Savior that they're following doesn't give a fuck. So you got to come to a point where you either go against him and say fuck it, or keep riding it out, um, like they are at this point. And honestly, I'm surprised by the Democrats, but I think the Democrats are doing the absolute right thing. Yeah, it's painful, but if we don't want this country to go down the shitter for healthcare or whatever reason, they got to stay strong and keep pushing.
Well, one of the things that Republicans are doing with these Affordable Care Act subsidies, they have found that Obamacare is actually popular when it's characterized as the Affordable Care Act. And now that people have access to it, they think it's for the most part better than it was.
Right.
It's our healthcare system is not perfect, but it's better than it was pre-ACA. Well, they don't like it. They want to be able to get rid of Obamacare. But every time they try to bring it up, it fails because they don't have enough of even their own people to support it. So the only other way they can do it is, well, let's starve it out. We cut these subsidies, we'll cause everybody's health care to go up 75% or better. And, we'll make it unaffordable. And then people will hate the Affordable Care Act, and then we can get rid of it because, people hate it. It's no longer popular. It's bullshit. And it's an end run around everything. And people are actually smarter than that. And I think some people, at least some of the voters, are seeing through what they're trying to do here. And they realize Democrats are doing the absolute right thing. They are holding out, forcing the Republicans' hand on this and putting the blame squarely on them by saying, hey, our demands aren't unreasonable. Republicans keep saying, well, we'll open the government. We'll discuss it later. We'll discuss it later. We're in
Yeah.
October. These things expire at the end of the year. There's not much later left.
And we know based on history that they'll fuck us over in the long run. It's like what I've
Mm-hmm.
said before. Lucy holding the football for Charlie Brown. At the last moment, they pull it away. We can't trust them because they've been proven to lie and cheat. So the idea that they will just pass the CR bill and we'll talk about it as we get closer to December. No, bitch, open enrollment starts October 1. We need it now. They know we need it now. They're just trying to push the goalpost back so they don't have to take the beating from Donald Trump. This is what kids with from narcissists do. They do anything to avoid the wrath of their parent who is a narcissist. They will do anything. And even if it's putting it off for a week or 2 weeks or a month or whatever, they will do it. But the problem is the Republicans in this situation can't be trusted. They've proven that they can't be trusted, and the Democrats are doing the only thing they can. It's not great because people are suffering, but if they don't do it, even more people will be suffering.
Exactly. Republicans are running scared from Donald Trump. And I think it's because, like we were talking about earlier, they're scared of that 30% of the base. If Donald Trump sicks his MAGA base on them and says, don't vote for that person, they're a rhino, they're not going to vote for that person. And they're afraid of getting primaried. They're afraid of losing their seat. They haven't figured out yet that sticking to Donald Trump is going to be a losing deal. Ultimately, they're going to take the heat for all of this and all of his failings, and he's not going to protect them. He's not going to do anything to make things better for them. And Democrats are doing the right thing. And besides that, we talk about how you say Republicans like to pull the football away. Okay, twice this year, Republicans have passed bills around the Democrats, around the filibuster, taking back money they had previously negotiated in good faith.
Right.
So why would the Democrats trust Republicans at this point? You say, "Hey, we're going to negotiate later." Either the negotiations will never happen, or you'll pass something cutting it. Again, there's no guarantee even that if they pass it this time, that they won't try to cut it next year. But
Yeah.
next year being an election year, it's less likely, but they still might try.
They might try. And, when you're dealing with a bully, you have to be a bigger bully. And that's why I said, in this negotiation, instead of saying, you got to do what's right, you got to do with rights, I would, if I was a Democrat, I would say, I'm prepared to sit on this till the midterms. So work with that. They don't want that to happen. People in this country don't want it to happen. But if the Democrats put up a strong front and don't appear to be movable, they will have no choice. Now, somebody's going to have to go back to Donald Trump and convince him, even though he doesn't give a shit about anybody. But the Republicans and maybe the oligarchs will have to put enough pressure on him to get him to change his mind. And we know he's known for doubling and tripling down, so it's going to take some work.
Yeah, but one of the ways that they could do it is by saying, "Hey, Donnie, just sign it. We'll get the government open right now." If they pass something around him or around his ones, just sign it, and then we'll do like we did earlier last year. We'll pass another rescissions package, and we'll cut it anyway. Just we get our way. We get the government open at least, so you look like the winner. They could do it pretty easy, and because Donald Trump doesn't read what's in bills. Hell, you could tell him that he got all his entire way in that bill, and he would just sign it. He's not going to take the time to read it and look through item by item. Never going to happen. So you could. There's many ways you could convince him to sign a CR with the passes with the stuff passed that the Democrats want in there. All they have to do is do it.
Yeah. All they have to do is do it, and Donald Trump will spin it some way to make him look like a genius. Now, Robert Reich, the former labor secretary for Bill Clinton and known expert we see online today, he said he felt as though the shutdown would end by way of air traffic controllers just walking off. And we are starting to see that to a certain extent because they're sitting in there doing a very hard job, a dangerous job, and they aren't getting paid. But that wasn't enough for Donald Trump. They're not getting paid. Then he comes out and says, you might not get your back pay. So you're working this job 8, 10 hours a day. It's very tough. It's very stressful. You're in the shutdown. You're not getting paid, but at least when it's over, you will get your money. But when Donald Trump comes out and says, you might not get your money, what's the motivation to continue to work? Why would Donald Trump even say that just to make the whole situation worse and tougher on Republicans?
Well, he says it thinking that because, he's dumb and doesn't understand how things work. He thinks he's got the upper hand in this, and that all the times he says it's a democratic shutdown, that people are believing that. And by him saying that, well, you won't get paid, then it's going to put more pressure on the Democrats to cave. But they've always back paid people who were furloughed and still work. And I believe there is a law passed that says they still have to get their back pay. I could be wrong.
No, I think you're right.
But
I'd heard that too. There is a law that guarantees it.
what they typically do though is they tack it into these funding bills that, oh, by the way, once we will back pay anybody who had to work during the shutdown, blah blah blah. They get their funds. Make sure they get paid. There's usually a line tacked in there somewhere just to make sure it happens, and everybody's made whole. No big deal. One, Donald Trump doesn't care what the law says. He doesn't know what the law says.
Right.
He only cares what he thinks the law is, and he's just trying to pressure Democrats. And it's not going to work because Democrats even know that they are going to end up paying these people the back pay when it finally happens and they get the government open.
I don't know if you heard the director of the Department of Transportation, Sean Duffy, this fucking clown. The only transportation experience he had previous to this job was he was on MTV's Road Rules. So that's how goofy this fuck is. He came out probably on a directive by Donald Trump and said he was admonishing these people who were calling in sick or walking off the job in as far as um, air traffic controllers. And he said, he said, if you are going to be the problem children and you walk off, we're just going to fire you. Well, that's fucking brilliant because we know the shutdown's going to be over at some point. You already have a shortage of air traffic controllers. There's not like lines of people waiting for the job or that are trained properly for the job. The comment was ridiculous. And again, it was an attempt to try to intimidate. That's what Donald Trump was trying to do is intimidate. You know who when Donald Trump says they may not get back pay, you know what Donald Trump was trying to do? I know how this motherfucker thinks. He was trying to scare the Democrats. Oh, if they don't get
Mhm.
their back pay, we're going to get blamed for it. Or he was trying to appeal to their more sensitive side, like they think the Democrats are. Oh, we can't have people not getting their back pay. The Democrats will cave at that point, which isn't true, but that's how Donald Trump's mind works.
Well, yeah, and because Donald Trump doesn't know how our government works, he forgets the one basic function of Congress. One of their basic functions. They have the purse. They
Yeah.
control how money gets spent. So congressional Democrats can sit there and go, yeah, fuck you, Donald. We'll just tack it in the bill to make sure they get their back pay. And if you don't sign it, you're going to be the one to look like the dumbass. We look like the heroes. You can't win this.
No, no, you can't. Um, the problem is Donald Trump think he has all the power in every situation, so he can just um, make some accusation or make some threat, and people will fold. He's always thought he can do that, and it's failed so many times. It's amazing to me that he still thinks he can do it. Um, like with the Epstein files thing, he's threatening those people to not sign on and talking to Mike Johnson about not swearing in this woman. Somebody confronted Mike Johnson about that. Why aren't you swearing in this woman from Arizona? Are you trying to hide from the Epstein files? And he goes, oh, that's ridiculous. It's not ridiculous. There really is no other explanation for you not swearing in this woman. You could have done it. You've done it with Republicans. You're not doing it for a very specific reason. And it's because your daddy Donnie is calling you up and said, don't you dare do that. Don't you dare do that. Even though you know it's stupid, it looks bad, you're still going to do it because Donald dumbass Trump told you to do it. And that is a recipe for fucking disaster.
Yep. That's the main reason what he's trying to do. And like I said, this whole thing could end up costing him his speakership in the end. When she finally gets sworn in, if there's a big bombshell that comes out of it, or like we were talking about earlier, 100 Republicans switch sides and vote for after the discharge petition is pulled and they vote for having the Epstein files released, and he wasn't able to, Donald Trump is going to call some of the hardcore MAGAs, get that fucker out of here. I don't want him in the speakership. Vote him out. Vote him out. And Democrats have no reason to save Mike Johnson. None.
Oh, and I don't know why you would. He's been such a supplicant piece of shit to Donald Trump. You need somebody with a little more backbone in there than Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson has none. He's weak as fuck. And I think he probably will get booted out of there because everything's coming apart at the seams for the Republicans. And when that happens, they start reacting out of emotions. They make dumb choices. And whether getting rid of Mike Johnson would be a dumb choice or not, I just don't know who else they'd put in there. What are they going to try to get Jim Jordan to win the speakership? Fucking doubt it. He lost like 3 times.
They don't really have anybody. Trying to think who they could put up. Marjorie Taylor Greene, maybe she's trying to distance herself from the MAGA Republicans and trying to be more mainstream because she's already seen the writing on the wall. She knows what's going to happen when Donald Trump falls. And it's a sad day when Marjorie Taylor Greene starts sounding like the voice of reason. Um,
Yeah,
Jim Jordan would never get it. And trying to think of who else they'd probably pull up somebody else we'd never heard of, like they did with Mike Johnson. We before
probably.
he got nominated, we had no idea who the hell he was. He was just somebody in the house.
Yeah, yeah, he was a nobody, and they'd probably have to pull up another nobody. I was talking to TJ, texting back and forth, and he was talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene and how she's kind of being reasonable about this health care. Part of it may be that she knows her community is going to suffer mightily if this isn't continued, the subsidies. And but but uh, but I'm wondering, how is it that in those 200 or so, 200 plus Republicans, she's the only one that sees the light at the end of the tunnel? She's got to be one of the dumber ones. How is it that she's the only one with the courage and or the foresight to see this is going to end badly and I don't want to be on that train? It surprises me.
I don't think she's the only one that's seeing the light of day. She's the only one currently acting. I think a bunch of them know that not supporting extending the ACA credits is a bad idea. That they know what's going on with it, but they haven't publicly said anything because they still believe that the party narrative that they're winning the shutdown battle. Until it looks like they're losing, then you'll start having them dogpile, right? That's what's going to probably happen. And then they'll come out, they'll vote to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies and go, well, see, I was in favor of it all the time. That's how politicians, or specifically Republican politicians, act all the time. Look at the infrastructure bill. They pass it, they get the money for their districts. Well, Democrats passed it, but Republicans get money going back into their districts. So they show up, see, look at this project that it came to me thanks to the infrastructure bill we passed. Bitch,
Yeah.
you voted against it. Sit down and shut up.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how ridiculous they can be and take credit for something that they wanted to go down in flames. What we were talking about before, the possible bombshell, that right really might be the trigger point. When they have to do this vote on the floor for releasing the Epstein files, that's really a tough position to put Republicans in, and that's why they don't want this to, this this bill, this workaround bill to go, because they don't want to expose themselves and have to vote to not release the files. That could be the trigger point where they say, fuck it, I'm just not doing that. I'm not doing that. And then a bunch of them sign on. And then when Donald Trump sees that all these people have gone against him, he's going to get angry. But what can you do to 100 people? You going to investigate all the motherfuckers?
He's probably going to try. He's going to lash out and he is going to rant and rave. And then if something publicly comes out with Donald Trump in the files, of course he's going to rant and rave. But at that point, Congress needs to do its job and impeach and remove. And they may actually have to do something at that point because the public outcry would be that strong. And if he's turned on his own party to that point, when they realize he's no longer helping them get elected in the midterms, they have no reason to save him. They have no reason to back him. And he doesn't realize this. He doesn't realize he is only as powerful as he is because they have been propping him up. He fully believes in his own mind that it is 100% himself, and they are just grateful for being around him and having him help them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people have talked about this before. The Democrats rallied around Donald Trump. They were surprised that he would be the presidential candidate. But in essence, he was their only hope. They really had nobody. I mean, Bush wouldn't have been a thing. None of these other candidates would have been strong enough to carry the Republican Party. So Donald Trump appears to be their only hope, and they're losing that now. So they are freaking out.
Yeah, they are going to have to do probably, it's going to take them a cycle or two to rebrand away from Donald Trump
At
and
least,
try to, yeah, to get away from everything Donald Trump related. I mean, you're going to have some people that are going to make an attempt. I guarantee you, uh, probably going to have JD Vance run in 28,
I hope
maybe
so.
Don Jr.
Oh, Jesus
Uh,
Christ.
maybe Eric Trump, um, something like that. They might attempt it, trying to see if they can recapture the Trump bandwagon. Um, but I don't think they've got a chance in 28 unless by some miracle Donald Trump has an aneurysm when the Epstein files come out and Republicans turn against him. Um, that JD Vance spends 2.5 years actually doing a halfway decent job as president, which I don't see happening. But that would be the
That's
only
not going
way
to
he.
happen.
No, I don't see it happening. But that would be their only hope for 28 with like a JD Vance. None of the serious Republicans are going to even attempt a run till probably at least 32.
Well, here's the problem for JD Vance. JD Vance isn't a bright man. He isn't a good politician. He pretty much is manipulated by anybody around him, much like Donald Trump is currently. If Donald Trump keels over tomorrow, he has destroyed this country so badly, economically and internationally, in every possible way. You'd need to be an extraordinary president to make things get better. J.D. Vance would not be an extraordinary president. He'd be a dumbass. And you throw in the fact that most Republicans don't even like him. He has no chance to even be a strong candidate for the Republican Party in 2028. However, he could be the only choice. And that's why I hope J.D. Vance runs in 2028. He will get his ass whooped.
I mean, I know it's early. The names currently that we are hearing making potential noise for 28 have been both Trumps. Well, all three Trumps really.
Yeah.
Don himself, Don Jr., and Eric, but Don Sr. is term limited and he's not eligible. So that will never be a thing. You have JD Vance, who is out there, he hasn't even really said if he would even run, but he'd be the logical choice as the sitting vice president or potentially incumbent president, assuming the Big Mac gets Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And then the only other name I've heard, potentially Ted Cruz.
Or Marco Rubio. Donald Trump
I
has suggested Marco Rubio.
Well, I've heard other people suggest Marco Rubio, but I read an article, I don't remember where I read it, where somebody was analyzing some of the moves Ted Cruz is making, and they think he is trying to start to slowly distance himself from Trump to prepare himself for a 28 run.
Talk about a delusional motherfucker. Here's a guy that is hated by Democrats and Republicans alike. Yeah, go ahead and run for president, Ted. How'd that work last time? You didn't even get close, and you won't get close this time. I hope Ted Cruz is the candidate. I hope JD Vance is the candidate because they will be very, very fucking easy to beat. Now, the idea that a Trump, Don Jr., Eric Trump would come and run, here's what I'm predicting. When Donald Trump is no more, one way or another, then the shit's going to come pouring out about Donald Trump. Now that he has no power, people that have been marginalized by him or people that he's hurt and were afraid of him, when he's down, they're going to monkey pile on the guy. But a lot of shit is going to get released, not just Epstein, but all the shit. And when that happens, Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump or Ivanka Trump will be lucky to get on TV because they will be the offspring of a pariah. And the next prediction I will make is the grandkids will do everything they can, a la Hitler, to change their last names.
Oh, probably. Hell, even Barron will probably change his last name, um, just to avoid it. And for those people that have suggested that, what did I see one MAGA fuck say? Because Barron's only 18, he'd be 21 or two in 28, so he would need 12 more years. Somebody suggested running Don Jr. for 2 terms, Eric for 2 terms, and then Barron for 2 terms, and that would be the greatest thing ever. That is never going to happen. I guarantee you, with all the shit that comes out after Donald Trump is finally gone, none of the Trumps will have any political aspirations whatsoever.
Or maybe even any kind of careers. What company is going to want to attach themselves to anybody with the name Trump? It's going to be horrible, and it surprises me that the family and the people around him don't understand this. He is such a despicable human being, and there's so much that we already know. Of course more shit's going to come out. And of course, there's going to be books and there's going to be movies and there's going to be leaks. These people that have been getting their ass kicked by Donald Trump that are holding pictures and that stuff, that's all coming out. I mean, when Donald Trump goes down, there's going to be big money in tearing Donald Trump down more and exposing him. That big money's going to pull a lot of shit out.
Oh yeah, and like everything with Donald Trump, what we've already seen in the public is only the tip of the iceberg. And they don't realize how bad it really is because they've been kind of insulated from the fallout because of their dad. He seems to get away with everything. So clearly it can't be that bad. People really don't hate him that much. Look at how much stuff he can still do. Look at what he can still get away with, etc.
Well, he gets away with it because of his position, and the Republicans basically are sycophants and they allow him to do it. I've said this before many times. If you don't like what's going on in this country by way of what Donald Trump is doing, there's one group of people that could stop it today, and that is the Republicans in Congress. They have the power to stop him today, but they refuse to do it. So when this is all said and done and Donald Trump is buried in his shitty pants and his purple face because he won't need the orange paint anymore, um, people are going to look for people who are accountable for the troubles and the trials and tribulations that they're being put through. Guaranteed they're going after the people that supported Donald Trump. They can't get Donald Trump. They're going to go after the people that supported him, and it's not going to be fucking pretty.
Yeah, they're going to go after him. They're going to go after him hardcore. Um, but there is one other person besides Republicans in Congress that could have an effect on Donald Trump and could take him out of the picture right now.
Who's that?
And that is coming up today when he goes to Walter Reed for his physical, his yearly exam. If the doctor would come out with a truthful report about his condition, saying, yes, he is suffering from early onset dementia. Yes, he's got congestive heart failure, and tell us everything that is bad about Donald Trump, that would put enough pressure on the Republicans to have to do something, whether it's the 25th Amendment, whether it's impeach and remove, or just publicly embarrass Donald Trump to the point where he's got no choice but to say, okay, for the sake of my health, I'm going to go spend my last years with my kids and everything. They really want me to.
Well, I mean, theoretically, he could be using that as an excuse because of the telling, you know, you're saying here that he's making his annual checkup with the doctor at Walter Reed, right?
That's
Well,
what
that's
they're saying.
interesting. That's interesting because he had his annual checkup in April. So this is his second checkup annually. So he went to the Walter Reed in April. He's going to Walter Reed now. Is there a problem that they're going to look at and they don't want to try to explain it away? Or is Donald Trump looking for an excuse to bail because he's getting too much pressure? Who knows?
I never thought about him looking for an excuse to bail, but also knowing Donald Trump and how much he cares about his image. I don't think, unless the doctor comes back and says, Donnie, you've got 3 months at best, despite all of our best efforts, you will be dead by Christmas. I don't see him resigning. I don't see him bailing. That is not who he
No,
is, especially
no.
not for health, because he wants us to believe he's 6'3", 235 pounds, and a peak physical specimen, and nobody's in
Yeah.
better shape than he is, and he's got a body of a 20-year-old. He says all this shit. He believes it. I firmly
Yeah.
believe that he believes it himself.
Oh, I do
So
too.
unless the doctor tells him he's down to days, there's no way. And even then, he may try to fire the doctor and bring in somebody else, try to bring back Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who I believe lost his medical license, but
Yeah.
who loves Donald Trump and was willing to lie to Donald Trump's face about his health. I think if it comes out that there's anything wrong with Donald Trump from this physical, it is going to be just like the last time. They're only telling us a fraction, and what's really wrong is going to be way, way worse than what they're telling us.
Could it be that something leaks out? I mean, I don't know if Walter Reed is leaky, but the people around him that will know the facts, maybe something
I'm,
leaks out.
I mean, we are talking with Donald Trump. There probably will be something leaking out, but that'll be coming from his diaper.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
It,
mean, there is a chance something might leak, or especially if it's bad enough. However, one of the things with Walter Reed is, well, and this is any medical facility, HIPAA applies. I don't know that any of them would be willing to risk leaking something to the press and violating HIPAA
yeah.
because that's a career ender, if not, criminal prosecution down the road. And they may never work in healthcare again. I don't know if any of them would want to do that unless it is so egregious that they had to say something.
Well, it's weird that you would have two annual checkups in the same year. That tells us something. He had one in March. He wouldn't need to do, or April. He wouldn't need to do one till next April, but here we are in October and he's doing it. He wouldn't do that and even announce that he's doing that if there's something weird wasn't going on. And we know it must. You watch him, he's low energy, he's rambling, he's not in his right mind, he's physically shot. Um, there's no way a doctor looks at him and says, "Man, you are a specimen." That's not going to happen. We may not ever hear what they say, but he may get some news that doesn't make him too happy, and it'll be what will be interesting to see how he acts coming out of it.
Well, depending on what he gets, we may actually get an idea because if it's really bad news that he gets, he may come out. Well, that dumbass doctor says I have this, this, and that. Like he may come out and just tell us what the doctor said, but and try to refute it by saying, "Well,
Oh,
I'm the peak physical specimen that I am. There's no way I have those things. I'm going to get a second opinion from somebody else, something
I'm
like
going to
that." I
sue
could see
him.
him doing that,
We'll take it to
or
the
yeah, or yeah,
Supreme Court.
yeah, something like that. Somebody I saw on TikTok, I don't remember. I wish I could give them appropriate credit. Suggested that maybe what he's doing is there. Some people are suggesting that these 5 6 day disappearances he's been pulling where he disappears
Yeah,
for that he's actually been getting treatments of some kind, and somebody suggested that maybe he's going so he can disappear over the weekend and get a treatment and have a cover for what was going on Well,
Yeah.
I was already there. They kept me just for observation or something, blah blah blah. No big deal. And he could cover a treatment. Somebody else suggested maybe he's going for dialysis.
And you know what? That sounds about right. And this is kind of weird. I've often said that my father was kind of a mini Trump before Trump was a politician. He had a lot of money. He uh, he was a narcissist. He was a piece of shit. I told a story on TikTok about why I wouldn't join the Purple Revolution based on my experience with my father and how you can never trust them. Uh, but here's the thing: when my father died, and I don't know a lot about it because I wasn't with him when he died, and I'm not sad about that at all. Call me just cruel, but you have to know my dad. And when he died, I hadn't seen him, but I heard that he was having some problems with uh, with having to get dialysis. And when he died, I talked to the people that were around him because I went to deal with his situation after he passed away. And they said the same thing about him, that he had his legs were just inflamed. They were huge, they were swollen. And it was, I can't remember what they called it. Somebody in the audience will know. But that was part and parcel to why he died. That was a sign as to why he died. Uh, and he did have to go through dialysis, I understand, for a time. I don't know if he did it every week or whatever he did, but it sounds very similar to what Donald Trump is going through. And it would be ironic if it were the same thing because my dad, the reason I don't like Donald Trump so much is because when I saw him, he reminded me of my dad in every possible way. And I knew what was coming. And I got to tell you, when I said I knew what was coming, it fucking worked out, except worse.
Yeah. It could be dialysis. It could be that he's going through some bullshit. He could be retaining water. Some people have suggested that the bruising on his hands is from getting IV treatments of some kind. And
I don't doubt
I
that. Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they stick you full of an IV when they give you dialysis.
Right. And I remember my
And
grandfather always had those bruises on his hands all over the place because he was getting IVs. So I wouldn't at all doubt that that's what's causing it.
right, I mean, this whole thing, it could be just a cover for him to try to, get a treatment of some kind for something. Problem is, what they've burned the it's an annual checkup story now. And we're making fun of him for it in the media. And we're not the only ones calling him out for it. I'm seeing a lot of creators saying, same thing we are. Annual, but you had your annual 6 months ago. What's really going on? Which means if he needs another treatment next month, what are they going to say? Are they going to say, well, he's just going for his annual checkup again? Are they going to try it again? Maybe. Donald Trump is dumb enough to think it might work. But if he starts needing continual appearances at Walter Reed, they're not going to be able to keep it covered up with, cover stories like this for very long. It's not going to work out that well.
Like you say, there is a HIPAA thing where um, the hospital can't reveal some of the treatments or all the treatments for that matter. But then you have to factor in that this is a unique situation and it is the president of the United States. And it's important that we have a president that is fully capable physically and mentally to handle the situation. Where does it come to the point where somebody says, yeah, there's a HIPAA rules, but this is about the country? This is about a leader who's just not capable. Can
I
you even get
don't
to that point?
I don't know if they can actually get around HIPAA because it's the president. I'm not sure on that. Um, but if by all appearances it is that bad, um, you would think that there would be something in place for the vice president to be apprised of the president's health. You would
You would hope
think.
so. But this is the
And if it
Trump
is
administration, so nothing is normal.
true, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody. Well, and the other thing is HIPAA only applies between the doctor and the patient. So if there's an aide in the room and they're not told to leave and they overhear something, I don't know that HIPAA applies to them.
I would
So,
think it does, but yeah, there may be a loophole, and you know how Donald Trump loves loopholes.
well, see, this would be a loophole that would work against Donald Trump
I know.
because, but, um, so somebody could be telling JD Vance, and then it would be up to JD Vance if he is aware of how bad off Donald Trump is, if this is very serious, and he's down to months or whatever the diagnosis would be, he may have to go to Congress with the cabinet and say, hey, he's incapable. We have to remove him. And maybe he bites the bullet. He takes the hit with every intention of not running for reelection in 28 and just says we got to do it because of his health. If nothing else, we need to let him rest or whatever. And it'd be better for our image if we can phrase it that way instead of letting him die in office.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is you and I have agreed that the likelihood of them getting rid of him by way of 25th Amendment is unlikely. However, if he physically cannot do it, and it's pretty obvious they have no choice at that point, you know what I think I would find entertaining? They get rid of him on the 25th Amendment. J.D. Vance takes over as president, and Donald Trump is still alive and talking. Oh, that would be a fucking shit show. He would burn down the Republican Party and J.D. Vance the entire time.
Oh, they would. And who JD Vance would get as his running mate, I have no idea. And I don't think he would get anybody who had any aspirations for running in 28 as a running mate. None.
No,
He wouldn't get Brian Kemp. He wouldn't get uh, Chris Christie, or who was the other one that was actually halfway reasonable? I can't think now. Um, that would maybe be able to make a run. But they're not going to get people like that. He's going to get some dumb fuck in that's probably as good as he is, maybe slightly better. They may even get an elder statesman, somebody like how Mike Pence was for Donald
Chuck
Trump.
Grassley? Chuck Grassley?
Take him. Take him. Please. Oh, better yet, I'll say it like this. If that prediction goes right and they take Chuck Grassley as VP, I'll throw my name in the hat to run to fill his seat.
Let me throw out this scenario though. If I'm a Republican and I'm smart, which is an oxymoron,
I was just
um,
gonna say.
but say somehow Donald Trump goes by the wayside, 25th Amendment, he keels over. Now, if I'm the Republican Party, I go after somebody like Brian Kemp that's relatively normal and get him to take the VP. Now, you're right. Nobody's going to want to uh, be next to JD Vance or be JD Vance's um, VP because he's going to take a beating. Unless, unless the Republican said, that dumb fuck JD Vance, just take the job. We're going to impeach the fucker in 6 months and you'll be the president. That might be a way to redeem what they're trying to do. Now, that's a pretty in depth scheme, and it would take some intelligence and some savvy, which Republicans have neither. But could you see that scenario?
I could see it. However, that would require Democrats, at least in the Senate, going along on the impeachment of JD Vance. And don't get me wrong, he's a dumb fuck. But just being a dumb fuck by itself would not be enough for the Democrats to side with him. They would have to have something airtight on JD Vance. Now,
Right.
would that be covering up Donald Trump's health for 6 months? Um, could they go into some of the dumb shit he said where he backed Donald Trump on some of his illegal bullshit? I mean, there's things they could do, probably. But if the Democrats are paying attention, they may actually move to save JD Vance just to keep somebody like Brian Kemp from becoming the president so they have an easier chance in 28.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. That's probably true. we're coming down toward the end, and I want to bring up all this situation with Donald Trump sending troops into various cities. He's running into some problems. He tries to send the Oregon National Guard into Portland. Judge says no. He tries to get cute and says, "Okay, I'll send the or the California National Guard in." No, you can't fucking do that. In fact, you can't send anybody from any state. So now he's got a problem. This spoiled little fucking piece of shit gets told no. So he says, "Well, maybe I'll do the Insurrection Act," which I don't think he'll do because that may be the end of times for him. And then people around him are saying, "Well, just do it anyway." I think that's more likely than the Insurrection Act, but even that might be problematic. Then we find out today that Illinois has said, or a judge in Illinois has said, you can't bring the National Guard there, and the Texas National Guard's already there, so he's getting stopped every way he tries. Say for Los Angeles or D.C., but every other city has had time to figure this out and plan for it. And I know Minnesota is even planned for it. Governor Walz said, "Yeah, we expect it, so we've been working on things to do." What happens when Donald Trump keeps getting pushed aside and not allowed to do what he wants to do? That's just asking for him to have a fucking tantrum.
Oh, there'll be a tantrum of some kind. He may try to escalate, send in the Marines or something like that, like he tried to do in LA. Now, the Portland case, there was an appeal, and the appellate court did partially overturn the lower court. Partially.
Partially. How so? How so?
What I read was they kept in place the part that Donald Trump can't send the Oregon National Guard into Portland, and they can't send other states into Oregon. But I guess the part that Donald Trump won was, well, he can still send Oregon National Guard somewhere else.
Hmm.
So if he
Yeah, yeah,
decides
you're
to
right
call up
about that.
Oregon, he could send them to Chicago or whatever. But then you have Illinois following the same formula that the judge in Portland said, no, you can't send the troops in here. You can't send the National Guard. And um, as long as the appellate court has upheld this, now other judges have a roadmap for a
Yeah.
successful defense against Donald Trump. And he's going to keep getting told no time and time and time again.
So what you're saying is he can't send the Portland National or the Oregon National Guard into Portland. That's a done deal. But he still has some power over the Oregon National Guard. So theoretically, he could send them someplace else. But clearly,
That's the
he,
article I read. That's the way it sounded to me.
okay. But what that means is, given what Illinois has done, he couldn't send the Oregon National Guard to Illinois because
Sounds
they've
that way.
said, okay, so then every other blue state will probably go through the same process and you could send them other places, but it will end up that the only place you could send them is to red states. That would be interesting.
Well, but even then, if the red states aren't the ones, they could turn around and say, hey, wait a minute, because you have blue cities in these red states whose officials could sue and say, hey, we don't want them in our city. Get it before a judge. Judge looks at all these other cases and goes, yeah, I'm not going against all those other judges. I'm going to rule the same way they have.
Right.
No.
Yeah. So how do you think this plays out? It's not working for Donald Trump. That's pretty standard for Trump to fail and look stupid. Uh, this isn't really going anywhere in a lot of these blue states. Of course, he got into Los Angeles, accomplished nothing. He got into D.C., accomplished nothing. If he was to get into these states, he would accomplish nothing. But now he's being turned away, and we know that tantrums are pretty common for Donald Trump. Um, does he then just try to escalate ICE? Because they can't shut out ICE, right? They're a federal. He can't kick ICE out, but ICE is having problems. The whole point of having the military in there is to protect those pussy ass ICE people because they're scared to death, as well they should be.
He may try to ramp up ICE, try to send in the FBI. Problem is, where he's sending all these other agencies to deal with immigration and to help with ICE, he's burning through their budgets. and
Yeah.
they don't have money to do the things they're supposed to be doing. And he'll probably try to escalate for a while, and then he'll just declare victory.
Yeah.
Or one of these cases will end up in front of the Supreme Court, and he'll get a small win. He'll declare victory that way and drop the whole matter.
Yeah, you're probably right. That's typically what he does. He'll just drop it and move on to the next failure. I mean, we were talking about with these prosecutions with Comey and Letitia James, and probably in spite of the fact of how badly that's going, he'll still go after Adam Schiff, um, and he will fail in each one of those times and somehow complain that the courts are all against him, in spite of the fact that some of these courts are with judges that he appointed. He just can't win for fucking losing.
Yeah, he can't win. But he'll do what he does with everything. He'll get some kind of a small win. He'll blow it up, blow it out of proportion, claim ultimate victory, and then not understand why people are calling him a dumb fuck.
Yeah, I just want to make a note. I've been calling him a dumb fuck since 2015. So I'm not jumping on any bandwagon. I've been on that bandwagon from the beginning.
I mean, I remember thinking he was a dumb fuck in the late '90s when I remember reading an article in our local paper talking about how he bankrupted a casino, but how he made like they're going out of business and he was making himself all kinds of money in the process while they were going out of business. And I remember thinking, what a dumb fuck. Why would you continue to do business with him?
Yeah, that's the amazing thing. That's always been the case. You know, we wonder why politicians stick by his side, but at the same time, when he was back in business, why would those people continue to do business with him? It's a mystery to me. I mean, I've been in business, and when somebody fucks you over, you don't get back into business with them. It's just common sense.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody from the town I grew up in, and there is a known developer over there who was notorious for building homes and pulling a Donald Trump. They'd build properties, build apartments, whatever, and they would try to shaft uh, the contractors, try to shaft the furniture company or the one because the one furniture store also did cabinets and flooring and all that. They got stiffed on bills, etc. And they kept going. Like, why do you guys continuing to do business with them? They didn't really have an answer, but everybody was pissed at him. I'm like, why? It makes no damn sense. Well, because he's one of the biggest developers we have. But he's only that big because you keep doing business with him and then get away with his bullshit.
Yeah, I mean that's a lesson people have to learn. They fuck you over once, don't give them a second chance. And this is, you know, as we're wrapping things up here, we'll talk about that purple revolution thing. I've come out and said that's bullshit. Don't get involved with it. I've dealt with people like this before, and when they come in and they work with you, they will first of all be stupid, so they won't be of any help. They'll want to control things, and then they'll leave and they'll fuck you over when they leave. A good example of this is a story Old Soul told me prior to the election. Okay, we had the whole abortion thing going on, the Roe v. Wade thing, and there were women in Texas, white women in Texas, who were begging for help. We've got to take care of this. Old Soul and a bunch of other African American women went down there, as I understand the story, and were helping them with protest and fighting the fight and got it saved in Texas. Then these white women went and voted for Donald Trump. That pissed them off because they were fighting against something Donald Trump supported and the Republicans supported, and they helped to save Texas from whatever. Didn't end up being the case because of what happened after Donald Trump became president. But they stood by him and said, "Yeah, thank you for your help. Thank you for your help." And then they go and vote for Donald Trump. That's what Republicans will do. They make poor choices. They're not very smart. They're not trustworthy. And if you give them a second chance, they will fuck you in the end. And that's how I see this purple revolution thing. And if you don't believe me, that's fine. But I've experienced it firsthand and I'm not buying it.
I was on a live Wednesday night, Yeah, Wednesday night I did a live, and somebody asked me about the Purple Revolution thing, and I kind of said the same thing. I don't entirely trust it. If they've finally seen the light and realized how bad Donald Trump is and how bad the Republicans are, they wouldn't still be red. They'd be
No.
independent or blue. They would have already shifted party allegiances away from the Republicans. But because they haven't quite learned the full lesson. They just think this guy's the problem. But the minute he that we deal with Donald Trump, they're right back to voting Republican no matter who again, and they're not going to be on our side. I don't have a whole lot of faith in this purple revolution idea. I think it's another attempt at a distraction, trying to get our guards down. That maybe they can infiltrate some sort of blue areas and get people comfortable with the idea of working with Republicans just so they can stab us in the back or figure out what our strategy is or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't buy it. I won't buy it. People say, well, you got to come together. We have to have unity. You know what? There's some people in your lives you just don't want in your lives, like my father. I hadn't seen him for 25 years before he died. It wasn't that I hated him. It wasn't that I thought I wished ill for him. It's that I knew he was a bad energy. He carried a dark cloud around him. I just didn't want him around my family. He can go do whatever the fuck he wants to do. I'm not going to spend my life hating them or even fighting with them. I just don't want them near me. And that's the same thing I would say about Trump-a-fucks. If you say now you against Donald Trump and you want to side with us, I need one explanation. How is it that you went from being racist to non-racist, misogynistic to non-misogynistic, anti-Semitic to non-anti-Semitic like that? Are you telling me you believe differently right now? If you can prove that to me, maybe I'll take you in. But I know you can't because you still have the same thoughts. You just don't like getting your ass kicked by the dumb fuck you voted for.
Yeah, exactly. They haven't changed their thought processes on hardly anything. They're just going with, oh shit, I'm tired of getting my ass beat here by this guy because he's fucking everything up that bad. And if we don't get rid of him specifically, we're going to be in the shitter. That's all
Right.
it is. That's
It
all it
is.
is.
And frankly, based on history and how they voted for him the first time and the second time, like the farmers, apparently they need to get their ass kicked to learn a lesson. So let the ass kicking commence.
Yeah, I mean the farmers didn't learn a lesson. We learned this the first time, and once again, China found buyers for their soybeans somewhere else, and farmers were left holding the bag. And it's not like we didn't warn them. We were calling it out all through the election, talking about how bad RFK Jr.'s policies of trying to get rid of high fructose corn syrup was going to be for farmers. How Donald Trump fucked over farmers the first time with his tariffs. I said it the whole time. They didn't listen.
Uh, as I wrap this up, you brought up RFK Jr., and I have to let you know about something he said today on Thursday. Um, he said he said that Tylenol was the cause of autism, and that didn't play well. So he had to come up with another scenario for autism. And his scenario for autism is early circumcision. Early circumcision is the cause of autism. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong, but there are some women that have autism too, right? It's not just a
Yep.
male thing. They don't
Yes,
get
it is.
circumcised, do they? Not that I
Uh,
know of.
no, no, they don't. Um,
I
well,
mean, it's
there's a
just so
procedure that is
ridiculous.
that they refer to as female circumcision, but it is an entirely different procedure. It is mutilation, and that is something else for a different discussion. But no, this whole thing's ridiculous. He's just trying to come up with anything. He's a dumb fuck. I wish um JFK and RFK Sr. were alive today, they would take him out back behind the woodshed, knock some sense into him. Wouldn't matter that they'd both probably be in their hundreds or close to 100 at this point. They would knock some sense into him because God, he's a dumb fuck. He's just trying to
If they,
find any reason to blame for being autistic
yeah.
because he thinks it's like a disease, like it's something that can be cured. It's not. And the only reason we have more cases than we had 20, 30 years ago or farther back is because we understand it better and more people are getting diagnosed.
And the thing is, they talk about autism. I mean, there are some extreme cases with autism where it's very debilitating, right? But I
Yes.
know a number of people that are autistic and they might be socially awkward and that sort of stuff. Some of these fuckers are smarter than anybody I know. It's not
Yes.
like they're debilitating. They're extraordinarily smart. They're a little unusual because of their social awkwardness or not, but it's hardly a disease that's debilitating.
Yeah. For most of them, the ones that aren't on the severe side of things, they may be socially awkward. They may not understand social cues. Some of them, it doesn't always correlate to increased intelligence. Doesn't always, but a lot of
Right.
them can be very smart or they are very knowledgeable about certain topics.
Yeah, they're focused.
They're very focused on certain topics and they know more than you would ever imagine about certain things. But for a lot of them, they don't think of things the same way that other people do. Their brain doesn't connect the dots in the same way that we do. But there's nothing wrong with them specifically. It's just we understand it better of to why they are the way they are. That's all it is.
Right. Well, I have a grandnephew who has autism, and he's what, like 12 years old? Just a goofy kid like any other kid. You wouldn't know he had autism if you saw it. But this kid knows everything there is to about numbers. He loves football. We bring him football cards that my kids had back in the 80s and 90s and 2000s. He loves that shit. He knows all the facts about it. I mean, he's talking about stuff that I lived through and I couldn't tell him. That isn't debilitating for the kid. He's got a hobby at this point, and for all we know, because he has a aptitude for numbers, it will turn into some big successful job down the road. In fact, I'm expecting it will. So for RFK Jr. to come out and say they can't talk, they can't feed themselves, fuck you, fuck you.
Now, there are some that are some on the severe side, but
Right.
they're the most extreme cases that have issues with that. But RFK just doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about with most things. I think the worm has gotten to his brain at this point. And like I said, if JFK and RFK were here, they'd both take him back behind the woodshed, knock some sense into him, and call it a day.
If JFK and RFK knew what RFK Jr. would have ended up being, they would have taken him as a baby, put him in a canvas bag with a brick, and thrown him in the Potomac River, and that would have saved us all a lot of problems. Yeah,
Maybe.
it's it's absolutely ridiculous. And and I said it's funny they ignore the one very serious study that's out there that says that people with worm brains or paint their faces orange and shit their pants are more than likely to be fascist dumbasses. Now, that study has been proven now. And why we
Yes,
don't
yes,
address that, I don't fucking know.
yes.
It's just
I mean,
absolutely
very
ridiculous.
scientific. We've all seen the evidence in everyday life.
And as Donald Trump would say, everybody's talking about it. Everybody's talking about it. We know
Yes,
it's true because everybody's talking about it. Anyway, I'm going to wrap
yes.
up the Rational Boomer podcast. Eric, thank you for coming on. It's always a pleasure and always a learning experience for me. So I appreciate that. Tell folks where they can find you if they haven't already.
Well, thanks for having me. I love being on the podcast. Love getting a chance to have a good discussion with somebody who is not a Trump-a-fuck because I get too many of them around me. Um, but if you're looking for me, four best places you can find me: TikTok at Analytical Iowan, YouTube at Analytical Iowan, Blue Sky at Analytical Iowan, or also over now on Spotify. I put up all of the audio from all of my TikToks and the audio from all of my lives over on Spotify. just as another option for people. Still getting better about keeping my stuff up on all the platforms in a more timely manner. Spotify is the one that is usually behind the other ones, but it all gets up there usually by the end of the day ish, or middle of the night for everything from the previous day.
Absolutely. And if you haven't checked him out already, by all means do it. YouTube, Spotify, TikTok. He's there. And if you aren't following him, you should be at this point. And I want to thank you. One of the nicest things anybody said to me today is that you're not an idiot or a Trumplefuck. So I appreciate that. And I wear that as a badge of honor. Um, all right, Eric, thank you very much. And those of you listening, thank you for taking the time. I hope you have a great day. And we will talk to you tomorrow.